Okay. Hello, everyone that's in chats. Thanks for coming again, spending your time, taking your time out of your daily day, and to join us today. It's very interesting what's going to happen and speak today on this hangout. Again, thanks for coming and supporting this channel and this hangout. Like always, I'll give it to Totter.
Well, you did well, Cats. Yeah, everybody, thank you for showing up again, and it's going to be an interesting hangout. We have FPV, One Conscious, and our special researcher here is Series. He's part of the team. He's been a little busy with other projects, but he's here to share some information and some updates on the current research these guys have been putting together. So, yeah, welcome everybody. Welcome, welcome. How you guys doing?
Oh, good, Mike. Cheers. How are you?
Good,
Hello,
good.
people.
Doing good, thank you.
Series, it's good to hear your voice, man. But listen, you guys go ahead and take the floor and just get right into it. I'm gonna put myself on mute and
Hi, hello everyone. Yeah, Series has popped in to give us some updates or information, or if you've got any questions for Series, write them down or ask Cat Size or any one of us, and we'll pass the information to Series to reply with if we can't reply ourselves. I'll pass the mic over to you, Series, if you want to start with any work you want to show anyone.
Well, yeah, first of all, I want just to talk about the beginning of the whole journey, because mostly people just miss that part and then don't see why I am where I am. Kind of what Gary John told me about. He knows where I am, he knows where he is, but he has no idea about the road between that. Well, yeah, in a sense, what is it, 2.5 years, 3.5 years ago, I came across Flat Earth through Facebook and saw that whole Eric Dubé stuff, and indeed realized the whole thing about the flat Earth, in the sense that it is first of all flat, but also immovable, and Santos turn it around in the sense that it is first of all immovable and second of all flat. But through Eric Dubé, I managed to actually get in touch with through one of his forums and asked him the question, because out of the ball of how the fuck does that work on the south then? Is there really no southern sky circle in that sense? Same as in the north. And it was practically denying the south for when it was about the EA circle. And the first thing after I asked the question was being banned. And well, that was goodbye Flat Earth for me for that. But almost a year later, I came across a lot of stuff of Santos Bonacci, and especially all the beginning stuff and Build It Up, etc. And then in his later stuff, he went Flat Earth. Okay, Flat Earth again. And then it took a while before I actually met the material Free Energy. And Free Energy's material was especially about the square principle of the 4D stuff. And that was another twist where what actually felt more in the direction of truth, more than the ball, because the ball itself is kind of how they play the game. Also, in the two-party system, you have always the control party and the chaos party working together, manipulating, etc., etc. That was obvious with the whole 9/11 event, that practically none of the wars in history have not a false flag trigger for the public to be digested as something what is needed. Eventually 4D became my journey, and then I came across all kinds of square ideas what are just not in that sense in 4D, and not solving the actual problem of what we have in circumnavigation on a flat Earth. Because in three-dimensional sense, we would think a circle in 3D, but it is actually a circle in 4D. But then you need to realize what a four-dimensional circle actually is. And the only way I can explain it is by taking a single dimension as a single line, which you just split up into a toroidal field, with the center of the line exactly in the middle of the toroidal field. And that's how it is three-dimensionally a line, but in fourth dimension, a circle, or actually a toroidal field in 3D. But you can't perceive it as a fourth dimension because you are in 3D. It's outside of your perception in that sense, because your perception is 3D. So there it gets confusing. People are thinking mostly about portals, Pac-Man, all this bullshit, about all kinds of tech, while it is just the nature of existence itself. And then I came across how Google Maps works, and I figured that the way they store their images are in the XY coordinates at a certain zoom level. And when you load a single image of 1 by 1 of the whole world, it is just a square. And when you zoom in, you get more squares and building up one big square. And you zoom in more, and eventually you come to the details that you can actually see your own house and your own neighborhood, and actually see how this photo is reality. So I figured this square is what reality is. I don't know how it works, but via the fourth dimensional principle, I can see how it works in fourth dimensional sense, but just not in 3D. Then you get these ideas of physical sense, etc. Because actually kind of the spiritual part is completely excluded in here. The imagery data itself was at a certain level disappearing more and more, because they don't store all the images. It's just a huge amount of imagery data in that sense. And from level 8 they start to delete the sea, and from level 12 they start to delete land. And first of all, Greenland and parts of Russia, and later the Amazons and all the big forests and so. And a big part of Antarctica, only the edges are there, etc. All the detail edges where you can actually see something or something. And it's kind of the missing image research what I began, what built up what is left from the imagery data. And then I came across the services that they also provide the elevation data, and from that I actually could fill in what was missing in the sea and the land and the missing photos. And so far the detail of the elevation data is actually still in the same position anywhere, no matter where you zoom in. So that doesn't change in that sense as a raw presentation of the elevation with the photographic data. And that actually connected how everything is in an east-west sense looped. It is therefore the same space. It is the same space in that sense, because the construct itself is only one square. Through the latest step of raw data, the third one is the magnetic data from the World Magnetic Map. And there I discovered that there is even a magnetic field shift between east-west, and exactly in the middle on longitude 0. And along the equator you have a wave separation. It's not a straight line like east and west, but you have a kind of a wave, like two halves of a flower leaf going through the center. And then you have the north and the south pole points where everything points away from. So it's kind of like I've took another angle of the whole thing or something, because it's not that the points are attracting something. No, they're tying four fields together. I can show a little movie about that. Okay. This is from top down is from west to east, and from right to left is north to south. And this is the magnetic sweep of 0 kilometers. And I start and a point at 0 kilometers on a particular line and calculate the whole magnetic line at that point and see where it goes. The first layer, the 0 kilometers. And yeah, it took me, what is it, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to actually calculate the whole movie of just 13 seconds. 6 kilometers and 9 kilometers waiting to do the next 13 seconds and create a complete movie out of the whole magnetic field of 1,000 kilometers thick. See where the field actually goes. And this is just a single moment, just to 2015. And it's just so much data to look at to actually see what it does. And I should actually animate with the land data, but that will take another week extra to animate actually the movie of just 13 seconds. This is a 4K animation, by the way, so it's pretty high detail to actually see it. And you can see that it flips at certain points, like east-west flip, and then in the middle, juke. as well east, west, as north, south. Points of the north and the south apparently attracted to here in the south. You see here, and then you have these going out of the realm in the north and the south, and the east-west part are the looping ones. This is just a circle of one square, which you can see double glued together. 3 squares sideways and 3 squares up and down. And the only way to see it happen is just by animating east-west double. Then you can actually see the connections between it all. There's a layer of magnetic data what is actually connecting through east-west and connecting the loop in that sense, and then goes north-south beyond. And it seems like the magnetic points are the points where the next, it starts at the magnetic point, it goes out to the north, then it comes in from the south and goes through the middle square and goes between the pole points, also out of the north again, and then comes in the south and then ties into the south pole. In that sense, it is a magnetic field loop. What goes, what is it, 2 times through the screen before it ends in itself. And it will take a while to actually create a whole movie. Just because of the technical sense, it's so much data.
Yeah, I think you're going to need a supercomputer now to handle this information.
I don't know, a 16-core Ryzen would be nice. 64 gig memory.
That would do nicely.
Yeah, then I can at least work next to that. I need a workhorse.
So what you're saying there about the magnetic data flowing north, south, east, west kind of movements, that kind of ties in with what I've been saying with technology switching on and off, and what One Conscious is talking about the earthquake pressure data. I wonder if there's a relation there showing in that magnetic data.
Yeah, the magnetic data shows so much. That's why I need actually also the elevation data with it, because you can see how the elevation data is connected to the magnetic data again, and also how it's also connected to the sacred geometry, what is orientated on the sun and the lemur. What is connecting into each other, and if you can put it all in one model, at some point I will all together. But
Yeah, you need like a few days worth, or at least a day's worth. You can see what the sun and moon are doing and that data with them. Yeah, that's definitely need more sun or moon information.
Data helps. Although I need a way to actually implement the raw data in a way that you can connect it with the rest. You know, the time base, all that stuff. I figured out a way to actually get the data from what is it? What is that? The time and date side. It's just by hand copy all the physical data there and put that in the model functioning like they say in 3D, and then in 4D as well, because of the angles and where it actually happens. It doesn't say what their three-dimensional positioning is, but in fourth-dimensional sense, I can actually calculate what their actual positions are. This is what somebody did. Chris Monk pointed at somebody's research of putting all the angles together in how people perceive the sun at a certain moment, and then all the angles put together in a three-dimensional map with all arrows. And what you saw there was that particular polygon form, what free energy was talking about as the light body, what shine downwards, what looks like to me as the bottom side of a toroidal field, in where it just widens up a particular bottom point, and that part is what is floating on the earth in a sense as a field on a field. And what we perceive is the angle of the four-dimensional projection on our own personal light body. What is a bubble? That is our outside field in that sense. And we have a certain restriction of how far we can look, even with the hardware. We can perceive more detail of the distance maybe, but there is a certain max amount of distance in how the field actually projects in your personal center, because the center decides what you perceive within the construct. Doesn't matter where you are on the circle of the fourth dimensional one. You take in that sense the square always with you, because you are always the center of that square. And then particularly the east-west direction. The funny thing was the flower of life pattern. It has, when you draw that flower of life circle, you see the 6 circles around that. And 2 of those are either east-west or north-south. In this case, I put them north-south. And those circles are a little bit more distant from each other, that the circle actually connects to its edges. But the other 2 directions have a shorter, if you take them east-west, that distance becomes shorter. And because that distance is shorter, you can actually loop it, the circle itself, line up the circle itself with the square again at the 15th square, because that's at the 13th square you find the 15th circle lining up with the square. And but when you do it then in a quarter direction turn, you only need 1 square to actually line up with the square again. And it's a lineup between the circle and the square. What is the play of the dynamics of the construct of the square and the dynamics of the circle. What we perceive as the earth, where we walk on, is practically the dynamics of the circle. It is not the actual construct of the spatial dimension of the square. I came to the conclusion that there are no infinities without a finite state, because nothing infinite can exist without a finite state. And that's practically what we are. We are infinities in a finite state. And that's what we see and perceive in the construct of the square, being the circle. Yeah, it's so beyond so many minds.
Yeah, lots to take in there, mate.
Understand first that you have to understand the 4th dimension before you can grasp anything beyond there. And the funny thing is the data itself, the photographic data, when you translate that in the GPS coordinates, you miss 5 degrees north and south, the last 5 degrees. But that last 5 degrees in that particular formula causes a complete square on top and on the bottom. Now, were there no photographic data there, but the elevation data returned actually data on those positions in the XY coordinates of the photographic dimensions. And what I actually use is the photographic dimension as the reality. That they use a wave function to actually translate that in GPS coordinates and then fake everything through the GPS coordinates that it is a ball. But you need for this particular formula actually north and south extra. Then they actually expose north and south as being bigger. And in that sense, I have the statement: find me one shorter circumnavigation than 40,055 kilometers. Because that is the shortest way to go, no matter where we are. And that's in east-west, because that is because of the fourth-dimensional construct of how the principle of infinities and finites are always together. You have no 3D without the hyperdimensions. Because 3D can't exist, because it's based on an infinity without a finite state, and that just can't exist. Grasp that. Yeah. We just think in 3D. We can put everything in 3D. We can model everything in 3D, but the nature is hyperdimensional. In a way, we are limited in putting it in 3D.
So we have to twist it or omit parts to get it into 3D, because we can't do the 4D basically.
Yeah, in a sense, I can draw all the 3 dimensions with their toroidal fields. And the construct of that ends up in a kind of, that double snake pattern of the 7 chakra bodies, what is one of the 7 levels of the bigger chakra system, what is the bigger awareness, the bigger consciousness of the universe, what is kind of growing in more awareness that it even can create new universes, etc., etc. And all that beyond, that is so much more description and to grasp, and where you're not.
So that's like what the Vedic teach then. That sounds like Vedic teachings to me. I've done a little bit of work on the Vedic deities, and I remember reading parts of that in there.
Yeah, it's a lot of connection there indeed. Same as Santos' work is completely connecting in this stuff. It's just the base construct is what we never figured out. The spatial construct, because things like they take time as the 4th dimension. Well, if you take Genesis, just Genesis 1:1, it states, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Well, in the beginning, there was time, and then came the creations of heaven and earth, 2 separate ones as well. It's also that we don't perceive it as something separate, in a way that we connect it always with the earth, as it is part of the earth. But the heavens are not the earth. The heavens are the heavens and the earth is the earth, and those are two separate things. And through the work of Stan Smith and Owen's failure as well, it's just a projection of our own personal field. And it is a personal setting of how the field is working energetically on you, because it's pure astrological energy in that sense. No wonder that there was that knowledge to begin with. Why has that so much influence on us? All the characteristics, etc. You know, when you come here, why it is that, and what your strong points are, what your weak points are, etc., etc. There's a whole knowledge based on that, but we don't realize the actual base knowledge. What is beneath that all? Why is it that something like that can explain what is happening with all these energies, etc., etc.? And then you have the other part of the actual inwards journey of becoming your own master. No longer being that dependent child on society, etc., etc. Somebody else as an authority. Actually planting yourself as seed in the most fertile ground of freedom, of actually having taken responsibility of your freedom and no longer giving it away like we think we have to. And it doesn't matter how hard we try to give it away, we can't lose it. And the only thing we can do is actually taking responsibility and becoming that adult level in spirit. You know, that's the biggest deal, I think, with whole society stuff. So programmed in following orders, never thinking for themselves. The whole programming of a television, you know, it's not for nothing called a program. We are just biological computers. We are the AI. You know? It's not that the hardware can think for its own. No, we are the spirit actually being programmed. We have no idea that it actually happens. And that's all about the levels of mind. In that sense, I came across there is no difference between the child and the master, other than that one doesn't know and the other is fully aware of it. And the only way to get through, to get from the child to the master, from unawareness, full unawareness to full awareness, is through the mind. And the mind knows 3 steps: the collective, the ego, and the universal step. The collective step from the forced outside yes, of that you do what your mother asks from you, that you do what your father asks from you, that you do what your teachers teach you, that you do what your boss asks from you, and that you do what your society demands from you. Then the ego step is the know from within. The better the ego, the better. The stronger the ego, the better. You know? The stronger the know from within. But that's its only function, from within. To get from outside to within. It's an art to figure out what the actual yes is, what you can say from within, so you get from the no to the yes. The ego itself is actually all about unawareness. And that's why there is this very subtle trick of ego stroking that people are getting addicted to that. And that it seems to be about all that, to make it in the world, have a very good stroked ego. Well, it's actually all about unawareness. Unawareness of how religion, for example, is used for the collective level as the child level. But in the meanwhile, as the ego level actually says no to it at all, because he just denies all the outside forced yeses. He actually denies, he's also triggered into deny the actual truths in their scriptures. And the scriptures are just claimed for fake authority, as if they are the authors of that book, you know. But the scriptures themselves are a source for the ego to find that particular yes, to be the cure for the ego from unawareness to awareness, to actually figuring out this particular issue of the only yes, what is left, and that's actually taking the full and utter responsibility for your own freedom. Be that adult. You know? Be in the universal level.
Hey, Series, I have a question. On the dimensions, there's how many levels? You said 7? If I'm correct, you said that.
Yeah. So far I can see 7.
Okay, because in the on the dimensions that. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I see the 7s. I can think about the 6th, and I can put 5 into words, but I speak mostly about 4th, just to get people out of the 3D mindset. Because that's the only thing what people mostly understand, 3D.
Okay. No, the reason I'm asking about the dimensions, because I know that, I don't know if people know here, but I know when the angels fall on earth with Lucifer, well, I know some stayed in the dimensions, if it's the third or the fourth, I'm not sure, but they stayed there, some of these angels. So that's why I know that there's a dimension, and I knew it was 7, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, in that sense, I would also say a lot of Santos' work actually ties into this whole stuff with the chakra systems and how the body energy systems work. Like he also said about the model of the universe is man. Man is the model of the universe. Something like that. And that is the level of where actually the whole construct is based on. It is all in that same all is atom. You know, it's all based. I can see in that sense you have that single apple of that atom, but you have also the body system. What is based in there? That is what is the complete 7 chakra system. But then you have a stacking of that as well as a higher, bigger body, what has 7 of these 7 layers. That's just a higher frequency of a bigger frequency. It's in a sense it's a lower frequency, but because the wave gets bigger. But it's kind of all circles and toroidal fields. And in 2-dimensional sense, it's simply drawn with a line and a circle. The only way to explain it. Why you have an infinite infinity of a finite infinity. And how it is impossible to have an infinite infinity. There is no 3D without 4D, 5D, and 6D, and probably 7D, etc. It's just basically impossible in spatial sense. But yeah, then you ask always, what is outside there? Well, there is no outside there in that sense. There's only this one universe, but also multiple universes probably. Personally, I haven't tuned holographically into everything yet.
Working on it, huh?
Yeah.
But
figuring.
the most questions we get asked, we've been promoting the map, by the way, while you've been busy with the other job you do, the other work. A lot of questions we get asked mainly is how do the sun and moon work on this model? Can you demonstrate that or talk about that a bit?
What particular model?
The sun and moon, how do they work in this model? That's the main questions we're getting at the moment.
Well, yeah. All is atom. All are toroidal fields as an atom, so also above. And so far I figured the sun and the moon are just the core fields of a toroidal field, and we see only the bottom. Why we see, for example, the sun and the moon turn only clockwise and anti-clockwise. We are looking into a toroidal field, or into the core of a toroidal field, but only a part of it. That part what actually reaches us within their field. It's our field crossing their field, and that field is what actually keeps them up. I figure.
Any
Not
questions
sure
from
how
you guys?
planets, etc. Yeah, it's in 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional sense. Try to figure out how the hell you have to do that. What you see and what you actually have. That's two different things.
Yeah. If you still have more information to divulge before we start asking questions, I want you to proceed with that. Otherwise, we could start asking you questions.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'll ask you. So, what got you to remove or not use the algorithm in order to get the map that we have now that you're working off? What gave you that inkling?
Yeah. So far, we take a photograph for reality, as long as we make them ourselves, I guess. I mean, then you can actually trust your own actions. But so far, I figured they can't fake the data. They can only tell lies about it. So I went just straight for the raw data. And my problem was actually connecting the GPS coordinates to that data, because there was some twist to that GPS coordinate. But the data itself came in a pure square, no matter how deep you zoom in with the zoom levels, as you have just it's based on the power of 2 zoom levels, in the sense that when you have zoom level 0, you have 1 by 1 image, and that 1 by 1 image is a perfect square. And when you zoom in to the deepest detail they have, that's level 20, you can actually see your own house and your own neighborhood, etc. And that is, far as far I can see, reality for what it is. I can't see anywhere in the photograph itself any corners actually twisted are not being 90 degrees, unless they're built that way. And when I put the whole photograph back onto the ball or the circle, then all this detail gets twisted, because when I translate that into the latitude longitude GPS coordinates, what is exactly based on the 360 by 180 degrees, then longitude stays the same in a sense, but the latitude gets twisted in the northern and southern direction. That even on the equator, the map is getting stretched up. And when I just leave it as a square, it is just what it is, and it doesn't get twisted. So in that sense, why twist it at all? The photograph is the photograph. It says that it is a square. It connects in east-west. It is looping. I'm just missing coordinates in north and south because the photograph only goes to the 85 latitude through the GPS coordinate system. And the translation between the XY coordinates and the latitude longitude coordinates is that the longitude is just one-on-one, but the latitude has a particular wave function, what gets twisted in a way that you end up with 3 squares. And thus, in raw sense, out of the photographic dimensions, I have 3 squares of data. So I figured that's reality, 3 squares. And the data itself doesn't really show anything that it has an edge in north and south direction as well, other than that the data itself stops, because the GPS system just doesn't need more. It is based on the triple square. And the only way to fill it in was with the elevation data, and that actually showed way more detail than was possible through the wave function out of an infinite point, because 2/3 of what is beyond there is so much detail that it's practical, and also etching with different data, that it is just not out of a single point. No matter the roughness they take out with the data resolution, the elevation resolution. But eventually the photograph is for me what reality is, and let reality tell what it is, you know. So far it just connects to everything free energy's work is based on. And I can see how can relativize completely into this magnetic field stuff, and that we just don't know what a field is. And that's practically what the dimension is. A dimension is just a field. It is the complete toroidal field. We just don't perceive it as that, because we are only taught in thinking in 3D and boxes without realizing the impossibility of an infinite infinity. We just finite it. You know, we create borders to think, and kind of mind soldiers, you know, who prevent us from actually thinking beyond particular borders. Kind of what I missed in this society stuff. Practically being unteachable.
Yeah, Series, thank you for that. What else, you guys? Just looking at some of the notes I wrote down. And you covered a lot, man. It's a lot of information for me to just take in and make sense of everything, like I said before. Our panelists, One Conscious, do you have any questions for him?
Yeah. Where to start? Let's see. First of all, really great data. Once you started talking about the magnetic data, I started to understand it a lot better. It makes sense with our real world data, because we see those swirls on the east and west, and we don't get a lot of data from north or south, so we really can't see if it goes beyond, but it obviously does, and I've been thinking that for a long time. One of the questions I wanted to ask was, when you talked about the 7 dimensions, are you, okay, so I get it, the whole toroidal field around us, which what could be conceived as a spherical shape of energy around our plane, and you spoke of the 7 layers. Are you speaking of above or below? Do you think there's 7 above and 7 below, like the Vedic cosmetology lays it out?
Yeah, it's more like how you put that whole model together as a complete body system. It is the body what is the seventh in that sense, but it is built out of the 7 chakras, energy points in that sense. And so we are kind of in the heart of that body system. And it's, so far I get out of other people's meditation and information and hints, that is that we have one universe existing out of 49 universes. And the 49 is the 7 times 7. And one is one of the 7 is 7 in its own. So it is a kind of switch between a single chakra and the 7 chakra, and the single and the 7 as a build up in that sense.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Every sort of every next dimension or consciousness contains the previous ones. So in the sense, the first 3 are contained within the in the 4th, and the 4th is contained in the 5th, and that is the north-south direction. And then the 5th is contained within the 6th, what is the up and down direction. And then the 7th is the body cell of what is it, 7 of these. Yeah, you need to 3D visualize it all. Huh? It's kind of DNA kind in that sense, but it's more like a chakra system, a Buddha on Buddha on a Buddha on a Buddha on a Buddha, and that's 7 times. And all kinds of levels eventually. It's just a consciousness expansion of how much aware you are of stages of your spiritual awareness is, I think. Camera. Here. If you take a square in the middle here, the crossing point of 2 circles, then the 2 circles express in that sense the 4th dimension. That you are the point in the middle, and then the rest folds around you, and then there also folds around you. As the field what completely folds around that whole part. And that as a whole is then the 4th dimension, what we perceive east-west. But then in the 5th dimension, it is then north-south. You have the same thing of the 4th dimension, but then double in field. And then this you have several fields to the chakra system. What is a neutral field in bigger scale? And that is then completely tying into another much for how far this goes, but and what level we are. But it is kind of how that the spatial construct is completely into toroidal fields. We are on the inertial plane of the field. No matter where we move, we are always the center. We are the center of this particular cell. And cell folds in itself as well.
like a nexus point, if you will.
There
Does
is
that
no
make
axis.
sense? There is no nexus point.
Always be the center, and no matter where that goes, where you move is where the center is, because you're the center of the universe. Everything is, and that's the thing where what is just hard to grasp, I guess, out of a three-dimensional perspective. But this is how fourth dimension works. And that's why we have an east-west looping. It's needed. If I take the whole the Flower of Life system with it, that's this one. East-west, I drew it the wrong way, but you can see the point is a little bit closer out of the edge. It doesn't actually crosses the edge, but here you can actually see that it crosses the edge, and then it ends up in the middle of the square, in the next square. So here you need only one square, but here you need several squares to end up actually exactly in the middle again. And that's the dilemma what you have with the Flower of Life structure. The way I drew the Tree of Life here is exactly in the how do you call that, in the spatial, in the heavenly orientation, because the looping through east-west here. But we have one north-south, because east-west is the one looping and north-south is the one going beyond. But this together is the Tree of Life. And we can see that in the south, the elevation data is all ground here. Then the world is here. And then it's all sea there. As if we have ground, earth, tree of heavens. Earth, the ground, the tree, and the heavens. And we are, in a sense, in the heart of the Tree of Life. In the middle garden. All kinds of things pointing to this. The complete system, what we actually need. And when you take the magnetic field with it, actually what goes beyond. I can probably draw a complete set of how the magnetic data looks and how it then works in tying into each other in a sort of toroidal chain. And that's how we tie from one realm into the other realm, probably.
Yeah, very, very intriguing. Katz, you have any questions? You want to ask the chat if they have any questions for series? I don't have a watch page, you guys. You know that. So shout out to the people in chat. But anybody asking questions, you guys should probably, this is a good time to.
Okay, I don't know if there's anything in, let me see. I don't see any questions in chats. Gosh. Well, I was just really interested in the dimensions because I know there's I know there's 7 levels, which is called the dimensions. Because the higher, I'm trying to figure it out too. I remember all this and I totally forgot because Sirius, when you were talking about Genesis 1 and 1, it really brings it out what the earth is and the universe completely.
2 separate creations here.
I'm sorry, what?
2 separate creations, and we are between, like a tree in heavens with the root, It's walking on the earth.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually growing out of in that sense.
What it?
Question of Brent in chat. How do these forces affect migrating animals?
And what?
How do these forces affect migrating animals?
Migrate.
Yeah, nature has its own rhythm and they are connected. We are disconnected, is my biggest guess. I don't know. They are connected. It's kind of the state we need to be in spiritual sense, that we are connecting to ourselves again, that we actually realize who we are, where we are, and what we came to do here. That's my main question, actually.
Okay, I have another question. So all of this, to me, is relating back to when I studied a lot into the Wiccan religion with the different deities and stuff like that. So physically, we wouldn't be able to travel to any of these dimensions. What about astrally? What do you think about that?
Oh, in the sense you can place your center in meditative sense where you want, because it's a holographic principle. You, as part of the whole, you are the whole, because you contain the whole, and the only thing you need to do is actually connect with yourself to connect with the whole. It's only the question, what the question is to be answered. It's kind of the principle of knock and the door will be opened. It's always what is your question? What you really want to know. Yeah.
So do you
It's
think
practically having the guts to even ask the question, because the answer might frighten you in that sense.
do you
It's
think
that
if we
most utter self-confrontation what you can have, you know.
lose vibration in this world on this finite plane, that we would say go to a lower dimension the next time?
Well, it's not finite. It is an infinite, finite infinity. And we only think it's finite through the ball, for example, or the circle. That there is a border anywhere, you know. But these borders are only told only in our minds. So far, I know.
Yeah, it's part of the indoctrination and herding everybody to the center and to keep you off the edges or the expanding earth, if you will.
Yeah, or an expanding awareness.
Or an expanding awareness as well, right. The limiting
Also,
us, right.
kind of, it's not that they hide God here in the world. No, they're advertising. What they hide is us, the Elohim, the Godhood, in the image. We are in the I am, but we are never be. No, that's the last thing we learn actually to be. We're mostly distracted from being. You know, actually, in that sense, all humans are like seed. We just never really have learned how to plant ourselves into the most fertile ground of freedom, so we can actually be the flower, what is within the seed. We never get to be, you know, the actual adult level. We are kept as children in that sense, as viewers, entertained, never to think, you know.
Yeah.
It's in the word. What is muse? Muse. It's
Propaganda.
not amuse
Then-
is not. Do you know what amuse is?
I didn't hear you. What was that?
Amuse. Amuse.
Oh, amuse. Yes. Uh huh.
Well, it's to not think. Because muse is to think. So
Oh, I'm
entertain-
sorry. You
Build.
said muse. I'm so sorry. I misinterpret what you had said. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Musing and amusing are each opposite meaning. You know, and if musing is thinking or kind of overthinking, then amuse is not to overthink and not to think practically. And that's how amusement is development. It is designed to keep you thinking without having the effort to ever think for yourself. No, and as long as there is TV, I can't even think. It bothers me that I can't think. No, where TV is on, I'm leaving very fast. In that sense, I love the silence of the universe because that's an orchestra on its own, a way deeper one, and that's probably the self-confrontation. You know? People try to avoid, put on music, always have noise on their heads, just to not think. Well, as if thinking is so bad. Yeah, you can become a psychological blah blah blah. No, not what I'm planning. It's mostly you deal with other people's fears. And yeah, it's kind of where I quit socializing in that sense.
Yeah. Thank you, series, for that. Any more questions? I'm sure there's more questions. Come on, FPV. I know you got stuff on your mind that you want to ask. Now's the time.
Stuff on my mind. I was looking at a chat with series about aircraft and other things yet how they factor into this model. You know, I can see what they're doing with the data on the flight radar kind of sites. They're faking going west when it's actually going north, then east, then coming in south over Russia. So, you know, it doesn't need a fourth dimension to do that. It's just tricks and flipping of data, making it look like it's going west. What would be your thought on the aircraft on the 4D model series?
Just go around like the globe, but then flat. It's why the globe is the control part of the two-party system, because it is the most order. It acts like the globe, and that's why people go for the globe, because they can only think in 3D. But because it's flat and it's immovable and we can't prove anything of all those globe theories, it just falls down in the drain or something. We end up with the flat, but it's not a circle as well, because then you have to deny half of the truth. And I can't deny half of the truth to realize what the truth is. And it's kind of where we are with in the beginning are fed with one half of the truth, because it's flat, it's immovable, but it doesn't prove anything of the circle. So far, the data doesn't explain anything about any circle at all. It just shows a square.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a Bible thumper, you guys know that, but I've heard scriptures, and we've all heard as he stood above the circle of the earth. Where do you think that term, why is it used in the Bible? Okay, we have God created heaven and the earth, and then you go down further into the book, and then they point out that the circle of the earth, it's been mentioned a couple times in the Bible. What's your take on that, and why was that term used and not a square of the earth, if you will?
God stood on the circle of the earth.
I don't
that
know.
means the
Oh, go ahead.
heavens. If it is the circle, then it says heaven, because heaven is the circle and Earth is the square, and it's a combination of both. There's also this double flower of life pattern in it, in that the Earth is the north-south orientation of the repeating of the square, but the east-west is that of the heavens. And that's why we have heaven turning from east to west. Because the flower pattern direction is going east-west, in that sense.
I like that answer. I could agree with that. I know you've been working with FPV on a lot of different things. What do you think about volcano activity?
I'm not sure, actually. Most explainable would be actually the whole electromagnetic effect where Chris was talking about. That particular disaster time in where we have a whole shitload of evidence still left in everywhere around, and how he explained, for example, that you have two mountains very near to each other, and where one of them is lower than the other, but the lower one is actually having ice on it, and the higher one doesn't. And that is explained through the different polarities of the energies there. One is the positive and the other one is the negative, and the negative attracts the ice. And he explained also that something like that can actually trigger a volcano point, in that it becomes a volcano later and after an impact, and that it becomes a sort of channel through electromagnetic effects. And how that is in randomly, it's all in a bigger system, of course. And in that sense, yeah, I need more data. Actually see it all. Actually show it all. So much work behind it. How do you explain it to somebody else? Somebody else ready for it? Are they mentally? Have they done the work?
Yep. Well, thanks again for that one also. What else, you guys? I'm just looking at some of my notes here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What do you think of the Nazca lines in series? How I'm actually fitting them into overlay and it's tying in with real world data. I don't know if you've been keeping up lately with the videos we've been putting out, but it's all tying up nicely. And one's made a nice video on the upper surface about it as well. In fact, what's your thoughts on that?
So far, I don't really understand the Nazca lines yet. I haven't really done much research in that, other than trying to figure out what the elevation data is in that area then. But
no, I mean how it actually fits in with the map and makes sense on the grid, ties in with the ley lines, and it actually ties in with Vedic deities and main beliefs as well.
So the imagery yesterday night.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's some of it. Yeah.
I didn't hear anything of the audio because I muted everything because of my visitors. I don't know what does it show. That one with the eye and then Australia.
It's pointing out locations, various locations in our world where the technology is based below ground, where we've seen the signaling on the mimic map and actually ties in with these geoglyphs that come with antennas. like the monkey that's holding the antenna that's located in South Africa. I've seen signals hitting there from Antarctica. So, it ties in, and so does the signaling we've seen from Antarctica going to Hawaii and Easter Island and even further north than that. There's definitely signaling going on. These geoglyphs are actually lining up with the location where the signals are going to. It's making total sense from what we're looking at on the Mimic map and what we're seeing with these Nazca line overlays.
All right.
Yeah, you probably haven't seen a few videos. If you only seen the one last night, there's more that lead up to that. But yeah, that was the lead up to it. That video last night. That's when I realised, well, once you can tie one geoglyph to a location, the rest start falling into place easier, and you can start overlaying them correctly then, and you can actually see beyond the realm. Some of these go outside of our realm, by the way, on a grand scale, and they're a lot more detailed than what I've been shown. There's that much detail and lines to the original ones. I haven't actually seen anyone show them. So I'm going to start cutting them out again myself and start the overlays all over again, because what it's showing is a massive structure. When you see these lines like one, or I've been using going across the map, it's a lot more detail than one single line. It looks like various structures and levels. So it's kind of portraying a whole structure below ground.
Yeah.
It ties in with locations with the Earth's chakras and places like that.
Yeah, I was going to say to One Conscious, if you want to show series what you've been doing and how it interconnects with everything that's going on, I don't think he's seen some of the data that you've been presenting to us. If you want to share that with him, just to give him some food for thought,
Yeah.
Well, I kind of came into it because I'm very interested in the Earth's energy, and so I started looking at earthquakes and stuff, and then watching them all. FPV pointed out that watching them swarm, and excuse me, when they swarm is showing activation of different events happening. I started to take it a little further. I'm at work, otherwise I'd just show you my map. I don't have a picture of it with me, but I took it a little further. So I took it a little further, and I went and got a Mercator map. It was the closest thing I could find to FPVs other than printing off and laminating the map itself. But so I entered our Earth chakra points on it, and I put the grid on it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's an art to find the data, indeed.
Yeah, it is. They hide a lot of data. But after I kind of started connecting the chakras of the Earth, and that took me across lots of angel points. There's the map. You can see it. So what I've done is the blue grid is on top of it. I have blue dots marking the angels. All the green lines are Earth's energy ley lines. I got those from connecting different angels, technology points along with Earth chakra points, and they develop their own power points that you can see where all the different lines begin to connect. It goes out to, it just goes out and beyond, which is how I can tell, it's saying what you're saying is accurate, because this energy doesn't just stop. Look at the north and south. You can see all of the south has so much going on down there. The lines and the arrows are how earthquake pressure travels. I did learn more recently with Ron's data and how you could see it actually moving, that when it does hit the center, it goes up to the north and kind of wraps around at the east and south, or I'm sorry, east and west, which is why I was pretty fascinated with your magnetic data, because I see that happen a lot. And my white marks are just, I also started adding weather modifications, places, and power stations, because I'm trying to show how they're kind of harvesting our energies, maybe in a way. I mean, they've got a whole group of them up there around CERN. Looks like a whole bunch of little arms coming out of it. Those are all power stations. And I mean, that's basically what I got going on. I was telling FPV I've kind of came to a halt point because I'm not real sure which direction to go from here. So
Yeah, in a way, I wonder what all these points do of show in the magnetic data field.
yeah,
All this land has a particular height, and then from there I can actually, with GPS positions, calculate where the magnetic lines go, or what that area actually has and on a magnetic field. So far, they have something like up to 2019 as a main field, and it's a very large field in that sense. I'm not sure how detailed it gets. Yeah, we can see at least the base magnetic field of it with the north and south points and all the exact crossing points. But we can also plot this and then figure out upwards up to 1,000 kilometers what that particular field area is for every dot. You can calculate those and see what that actually shows on the map as an influence. Just as a new overlay in that sense. I could probably put it exact in time, but charts, at least beyond the day.
Yeah, that'd be good to see the correlation. No doubt. No doubt. It's good stuff, man.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, those bottom blue dots, they actually line up with volcanoes. I've already checked them before. There's a certain configuration going up that seems to be responsible for volcanoes.
That's nice.
You remember the Ring of Fire? The Ring of Fire is not actually a ring, it's on two opposite sides of the world. They've joined it together to make out as though it's like a globe where Alaska touches Russia, basically, but it's not. Nowhere near. So it doesn't actually translate to what you think it does. Cloud of the Ring of Fire, it's, well, you can actually see it on there, can't you? It's going down the west coast. And it's coming up from New Zealand, going up towards those islands.
Things here, you have the lines, the blue lines.
So you're going to see it?
These blue lines, or green lines on this chart. What are these lines?
which ones? The blue ones?
Lines.
Yeah, those long straight lines everywhere. What are those?
Those are the energy lines. Those are all the ley lines. They're all the points connected, and it's not every single point because I kind of ran out of patience. But
yeah, if you have only the points, I can connect the lines on the map through the space loop, etc.
Well, on your magnetic data that you've shown before, series, I've managed to connect a point from it's north of UK, and it comes down to what just past South Africa, to one of those blue points, and then kind of arcs. It kind of bends to the left. If you look at one of your magnetic data images, you'll find one from UK, and it comes all the way down there in a straight line, and it kind of arcs left a bit. And they're connecting between a point in the UK and one down towards one of those volcanoes in the south.
Yeah, you
look at the other magnetic data, and it's doing pretty much similar.
In the elevation data, you see actually the bigger crack lines of the bigger, how do you call that, energy flow lines. It's kind of the same way you burn some kind of arcing on wood. Well, in that sense, you see it also in bigger scale on the Earth. These are what they call the platonic layers, but these are just the divisions between the layers because of the energy fields flowing there. These are energy flow lines. What we see, and in the elevation data, you can actually see them through the coloring. Yeah, but then without the sea.
Yeah, like that image there. Look, see where UK is on there. You see the magnetic data going out towards that volcano in the south. There's a little island of a volcano on. That's where then 3 lines of magnetic data are going. Straight towards that volcano.
Magnetic north is actually kind of the center of that circle mountain range below the sea. There's a circle around that. So the elevation data is actually tying into the magnetic data. And in the south,
which is the location we've marked down as what the Angel technologies are.
In the south, you see also the outflow field of the magnetic field go into the middle of that outflow field towards the south. So you can actually see how it also connects into the south. And then beneath this arc, you have actually the east-west connection loop. Something connects out of the south back to the south through the loop and comes from the north and goes to the west and then goes into the south. And that means is also that it comes from the left and goes in the middle in the north. So you have this space loop tie in the magnetic field as well. And that's actually the most interesting part of it, I think. That even the magnetic data shows there is a space loop connection, but you can't untie without losing the dimension of in the east-west. You need a connection there. But it is through the same square space construct in that sense.
What about the 4 pillars? Have you got any more images on that? I haven't even seen one image of that so far.
That was my next question. Thank you, FPV. Good one. Yep.
Beat you to it, Mike.
Yeah. Well, the 4 pillars are what I figured the 4 flower of life points who do not edge the square. When you put the flower of life in east-west connection, that you have the leaf connected like the analemma is functioning as a single wave. Then you have in north and south 2 points left, and those are the 4 pillars. One of them ties as an endpoint, and the other one ties as a flow point, I guess, because you have something what ties out of the south into our square and out of the north into our square, and then you have something coming out of the south going through our square, going through the space loop, and then going through north. So it's kind of as if these outwards in the north and in the south are actually kind of the inwards out of the north and out of the south. As if that is the whole field, just expressed in 3 squares. But you need, what is it, 1, 2, 5 squares to actually show the whole field of where it begins and where it ends. And that holds the earth field of the land, I guess, together. It's only the question, the beyonds. How the hell? And in that sense, actually, rather north than south. As far as I can hear, the angels are in the north, but the devils are in south.
That would be
Yeah.
your maintainer and your destroyer then. Well, the creator and destroyer.
Yeah.
I think Santos put it as Brahma's the creator, the one at the center at 0.0. So I presume the ones in the north would be the maintainer and the south be the destroyer then.
It's kind of what I discovered, thought about last weekend. It's that movie, The Matrix, the way they express it is that we think that the Matrix is a virtual thing and that the real world is the physical thing, that it is only a state of mind, blah, blah. Well, what if it is just the other way around, that the physical thing is the Matrix and the spiritual thing is the outside of the Matrix, that you are your spiritual master and that you actually control your game, actually write your own book of life, instead of being authored in a sense that you are enslaved to somebody else's authority writing your life and never actually express that seed into the flower you are. That's how the masses are not really effective.
Yeah, thank you for that once again, series. The double helix that you guys got. Maybe you guys got a snapshot of the double helix. Well, maybe I'm jumping the gun right here. Are you done with that explanation, or was there more to it?
Double helix.
Yeah,
So
FPV. Show
the
them
one I
that.
picked up on the Mimic map.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to play a video. Hold on a sec. Before I do, I just want to show the guys in chat this map in its completeness, because I don't think everyone's seen it. There you go. Can you see that? See the Antarctica, known world, and what's in the north that's obscured. I'll let you just explain that one, series.
Yeah, the funny thing is completely below in the south, exactly at the edge. At some point, it goes over into this wave pattern. And this wave pattern is actually the same wave what we see back in the magnetic field exactly at the equator. And what I did was also, first of all, I drew the whole flower of life pattern exactly at 0.0 latitude longitude in the middle of the map. But that didn't really line up very good. And then after I've put in the analimas, the tropics, I found out what the region was, and I drew the wave between the tropics edges in one wave per square, and the wave crosses exactly the 0 point. And then I put on the golden ratio in western direction the position of the Analima crossing, what I call it. And from that point I drew the smaller circle on top and the bigger circle below. And that particular position I took as the center of the flower of life circle, what is based on the same spatial square. And then the 4 deviating points of the north and south direction actually lined up with the elevation data, in the sense that you saw the elevation mountain points and peaks exactly on those points. And but in the north it kind of deviates a lot. It's like it's more dynamic in the north and more grown out as a tree as well, you know. But then the second circle, when you line it up with those points, and then in the south, the second points at the bottom actually line up with the edge of the wave, where the wave begins. And exactly in the middle of the peak and the bottom points of that wave. And then I knew I had the Flower of Life grid actually lined up with how the elevation data shows it as well, based on the golden ratio, based on the tropics. It's, yeah, kind of hidden through it all, but and yeah, through the Analima drawing, somebody mentioned that it looked very much like a Buddha, and then I began to put in Buddha, and then I figured that even the nose of Iceland is the nose of Buddha, the tip of the nose, and Greenland is half of his face, with an eyebrow part of it, and the other one is the negative half, what you see below C. So within the square, we have even the Buddha drawing fitting that whole stuff. Yeah, and then in that time, I was still not figuring out what fifth dimension meant actually, but I came across the book The Worlds Beyond the Poles, also explaining that these beyonds are the celestial realm we see above us, as how that field actually energetically projects on the bubble of where the middle square of Earth is, and that we see the whole circle in the sky, and why also that is the energetic way of how it influences us. And these are just two halves of the alphabet in north and south direction in that sense. So yeah, in a sense, I wonder how far that is a physical realm. Maybe it's physical, like we are physical in the sense that it is the matrix of what we create, and then in spiritual sense, lived. It's funny, yeah. Masters of our own matrix. I wonder why people actually call energy an utopia. Kind of that they project it as something unreachable. And that's why we never reach it, probably.
Okie dokie. Right, well, I'll show you this clip of the double helix then, shall I?
Yeah, thank you. Yep. And once again, thank you guys for hanging out and just being here and observing what's going on here with the research. It's great that you guys are all here, and I mean, I know a lot of you guys are very interested in the research. So thank you for being here and taking part of it. If you have questions, please do ask. Okay.
Hey, anytime, Mike. No worries, mate. Right, hold on. Here you go. This is the double helix picked up on the Mimic map. Also noticed the signalling coming from Easter Island and a location just off the coast of Australia there. Now these are what I've been tying in with these ASCA lines. The hummingbird is the one that actually sends a signal to Easter Island. And going by the geoglyph, there is a square structure below it. The one it's not, I don't think you'll see on this map, there's one does hit the tip of South Africa. That's where the monkey kind of gets located with a coil, the one with the curly tail. And I would suggest that's probably a spinner wheel or what we would call a halo. But you can see there this double helix. You can see it going around there. I've actually overlaid this on the 4 pillars that Ceres is using it. You can see it's like looping back into it.
Here, the land is a little bit twisted, that it is stretched north and south.
Yeah, it's a mimic map, so it's just some kind of Mercator projection gone wrong by the look of it.
If there is an actual source point where you can get your data raw, so you can actually project it in the right context and the full context, especially.
Well, that's why I think that's why they obscure in the map. You can't see where it's going to or coming from.
Oh, it's.
Well, we're pretty sure it's those 4 corners on the 8x8 grid.
Well, the south point is the magnetic south point is there, but north you don't see. Wow. So if that isn't artificial, then I don't know.
No, they're trying to hide this. They're cutting it out all the time. They missed this one. This was the winter solstice last year, well, 2016. But since then, yeah, they've been cutting them out, and they just leave a mess of white patches where it was, and they cut it out. But the signaling is still going on. There's various different types of signaling. I've seen at least 4 different types of signals coming to and going from Antarctica to around the world. That was me cutting it out and putting it on your 4 pillars there, Ceres. I'll just pause it there so you can just discuss that if you like, the 4 pillars part.
Yeah, north and south are turned. But you can see the space loop here in the magnetic field in east-west. South ties back into itself, and north ties back into itself. But then through the space loop in different directions.
That's not happening all the time either. That's the first time I've noticed a double one. Usually you see a single one snaking around.
I think the magnetic data is 180 degrees the wrong way.
I think that's when there was switching happening, because that would have been the winter solstice. That's when, things started changing, earthquake data started changing. One probably noticed earthquake pressure moving around, flowing more. That's what we need information on, really, the solstices and equinoxes. And then we can guarantee, you should see 4 different patterns.
Something is at work here. Damn.
Well, orientation, guys, Africa would just be right of the center of that helix.
And it's also from west to east, huh?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Usually you only see one. That was the first time I've noticed 2. I mean, it might happen more than I think. I haven't been looking at all the data from there. But when I noticed it, I thought, wow, there's 2 there.
As well, to see the whole connection. It's an infinite loop in a finite square.
That's what I'm saying. It's not always an infinite loop. Sometimes it's a single loop. So the equinox and solstices, I think you're going to get 4 different patterns or 2 possibly reverse patterns happening here.
One wave repeating itself twice in the same square. It's kind of an infinite loop going around. It's if it keeps sweeping. Oh, it moves even. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
The trajectory there is going to the 4 corners of the 8x8.
I need to get this projection in the right context first. Then you can actually have an accurate overlay. There's also these several Flower of Life grid layers within each other. I'm still figuring out how to draw those, because you have the east-west direction and the north-south direction, and which one goes where is always the question. What is your orientation in that sense?
Roughly what you're seeing there, that's kind of roughly what just happened. It seemed a bit more sharper than what you see there, like something's changed, or
Wider waves.
yeah, it seemed more narrow banded the wave.
Also, yeah, you can't see even Greenland anymore. Yeah, in a sense, I can use GPS because I can translate it into the actual square dimension of the photograph. So it's in that sense good data when you record something somewhere at some time. And then see everything together. That's also these ley lines. I really like to have these ley lines in a digital form. Even simple text is welcome.
You want the ley lines?
Yeah, these ley lines. If you can actually put them in data, in a sense that I can animate it and put it in the animation data, you can actually connect ley lines and later to something else. Who knows what? I'm not even sure how
That's what I've been looking at with the Nazca geoglyphs. I can now find the ones that are outside of this realm. They go beyond what you can see there.
Yeah. As long as I can know the GPS coordinates, I can find out where, if I put it on the map and actually draw it, add it to a drawing with everything in it. Yeah, the whole idea of getting this data was just to figure out what the hell we should put together, you know. First of all these recordings of the sun and moon, and then how do you want to actually interpret these? Put it in a structure that you can actually interpret them, etc., etc. And in that sense, you can record everything, but then the question becomes on what map do you want actually to project it in? What is the context of how you project it? And where does it all come from? And how do we put it together, etc., etc. Then the easy way became Google Maps, because that was already provided photographically, etc., etc. And that's also how I built this whole map up, out of the square context. But then beyond the borders, they let us show us. There is more data, they just don't show it.
There's an example of ley lines where the geoglyphs are actually they come with these ley lines. When you start putting them in the correct places, like I showed there with the hummingbird pointing right towards that square structure, the monkey South Africa. Yeah, you can see there an antenna. You can see the antenna in the monkey's hand. See it? It means it's a receiving station. The signals are coming from somewhere in Antarctica. Same with the Easter Island and Hawaii and other places. You pick them up on the Mimic map going directly to these locations. The Condor, that gets signaling sent to it as well. So I know I've got them aligned correctly.
I wonder.
That's what I was saying about these lines. The ley lines aren't just straight lines. There's a lot more to these lines than you think. You need to look at the Nazca lines because each single line has got structures coming off the sides of them. It's not just one straight line. There's things coming off going in other directions off each line. And to put it over a map, it'd probably be better. Hold on, I'll just move it forward a bit and I'll show you what I mean. You start getting like that, and then it gets more and more and more until it just fills the map. That's the level of detail on these Nazca lines. I can't even put all the information that they've got on there. So you'd have to do section by section and, you know, scale the map up to fit them on, basically. But these are all lined up in correct locations and tie in with One Conscience's data. Notice, see my mouse, so that structure there. You look at it, it looks like pipework. That is on the Vedic mandala. That exact bit of structure there. It's on the Vedic mandala. So yeah, you know, this is just some of the lines there. It goes, you can see my mouse. That kind of ends the end of our world, say there. Well, I've found ones that go way over there, way up there, way down here. They're everywhere, and they extend a lot further out than I thought they would. You know, and they will tie in with this once you start matching where it should be. Because now we've got this on and tied that in there with Ayers Rock, say, on Australia. I can now take the ones that are beyond the realm, matching them to that location. So yeah, the Nazca lines are very important blueprints, in my opinion. You know, they weren't put there because someone was bored. Sacred geometry for a reason.
What are they showing here?
It's showing basically the ones lines are showing the ley lines, all the connections that's going on underground. Physical structure below ground.
A network, an underground network.
Yeah, definitely a technological network, and who knows what else. Because, like I said, with the signaling, it's pretty obvious that the signaling going on, things switching on and off. This is being recorded with earthquake data, and Ron's been tracking the pressure, and you can follow the pressure around. You'll see things, you know, they start activating. Something will switch on here, something will switch on there, something will shut down over here. And then what one noticed, the weather starts following that pattern. So you'll get, say, an earthquake tremor, a signal will be sent, you get an earthquake tremor as technology comes online. That'll move somewhere else. As that technology came online, a day or so later, the weather patterns start following it round.
Yeah, the example of that was.
I was just going to say, do you want to comment on that one?
The example that I was using for that was just a few days ago. We had we didn't, but down in Mexico there was a 7.2 earthquake. So I'm northeast of there. I'm in Illinois, in the States. So we were sitting at -2 temperatures in Illinois the day that earthquake hit. And it's our winter time right now. And the next day, the wind was blowing real hard, and our temperatures raised to 57 degrees. And then the next day after that, so we're talking day 3 after the quake, our temperatures dropped back down to 22, and we had a ice storm that night. And the warm temperatures actually went on up northeast a bit. I forget who I talked to, but they said their temperatures up there were unusually warm. So it just kind of followed the earthquake path right on up, and the warm weather kind of went with it.
It's kind of the whole electromagnetic universe. Everything is electric and magnetic. It's temperatures. How much is that actually connected to magnetics or electricity? I think because this is what this mountain actually showed, in that it was lower, but it had more ice. and the other one was higher, and it had no eyes at all, actually. Just because of the positive and negative nature of the polarity of the mountain. So there is a magnetic, electromagnetic influence in temperature. Probably also from within. Silence.
Yoda. Oh no!
Yeah, that was good. Good stuff, you guys. Good stuff. Any other questions or anything else, you guys? Cats, do you have any questions? Any other questions on chat?
No, not me. Can you
I'll
hear
just
me?
show, I don't know if Sadie's got these yesterday, I'll just show them these. Now I know where they're located and them on the map. And that's where they go. You see them?
Yeah.
That's the Nazca Mandala, and these two other parts that come with it, and the Sunstar of Peru is the 12 by 12 grid behind it. This is kind of making up a lot of those ley lines, and then you get the smaller ones, one's been shown going everywhere, running in and out of this place. They're everywhere, aren't they?
Yeah, okay, there's also a difference between big and small, okay? Yeah. Yeah. As if you have these bigger and smaller branches.
I was wondering if there could be something to do with the other luminaries, whatever they might be. I'm not sure what these things are yet. It suggests three kind of halo systems on each. Other than that, you know.
You have, with this double flower pattern, you have, when you draw what is structurally through the spatial coordinates track north-south, in east-west direction, turn it 90 degrees. Then you go also through the loop, and then you see actually the looping of that effect. And that creates a smaller triangle grid of all these points, what are spatially exactly through the loop, through the dynamics of the flower of life. What is it? Division. It's 13th, 15th of a distance, and doesn't matter how large your circle is, it's always that 13th, 15th of the radius of the one side of the equilateral triangle. That creates a smaller grid, but that does it because of the space loop, the nature of the space loop. And if you ask me, that is the first next level in how you go smaller in steps of, for example, octaves. And still need to draw it all out on a canvas, I guess, in 3D to show what I mean. It's kind of more accurate, probably. But it, if you ask me, that's how also the bigger and the smaller structures of energy flows are actually separated. All based on the whole sacred geometry, and then from the base circle the square doesn't exist, the circle doesn't exist, only the triangles in between. That's the meeting point of both.
That's I think I heard Matt Jerome say the same thing, correct?
I was just going to say that. Where's Matt when you need him?
Yeah, exactly. Where's Matt Jerome when we need him? But yeah, he's stated that before, and what you're telling me, yeah, I see the connection, man. I really do. It's great.
he can see it in the numbers, in the colors, etc.
Yeah, he's a brilliant mind for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's asked me if we can do a hangout sometime. I'll get him on here sometime, Cats.
Yeah, definitely. He's part of your research team. So, well, you're the coach there, FPV.
Yeah, we'll get them in and out. Yeah. Anyway, any researchers want to jump on this panel, they're all welcome. Aren't they?
Yeah. Otherwise, you're gonna get sacked, and someone's gonna take your spot. I'm kidding.
You're fired.
Everybody.
So far, truth will speak for itself. It's just a question of, do we actually look? Or listen?
Hey, do you want to tell the guys in chat series this other project you've been working on? They're probably not all aware what you've been working on and where you've been.
What project?
The coin one.
Oh, the cryptocurrency. Yeah. FCC. Well, yeah, a friend of mine came across that whole cryptocurrency and eventually came on the idea of actually creating his own. But he is such an IT freak that he actually looked at the base of the whole thing and saw how that actually works, and realized what crap it actually is. So he started actually from the ground up, completely redesigning cryptocurrency and how it actually should be safe, etc., and actually decentralized and able to cope with the level where the current cryptocurrencies actually are beginning to fail, like transactions who are taking weeks to actually being transferred, and all kinds of power structures through the miners who are deciding everything, and etc. And he actually split up the whole thing in what should be what, and the nodes are actually the ones who are keeping the ledger, and between the node network there should be a consensus of what should be going into the ledger, and that's the shortest way to actually deal with this whole stuff. And the miners have a secondary job, and that is actually mining the coin. That's their sole job. And the design is even so that you can actually decide yourself how you release a coin, even if you are doing it with or without mining. You can kind of put it kind of randomly into that everyone can join in, and everyone who runs a node actually earns a newly created coin every 5 minutes, for example, randomly as a lottery. And then the transactions are just based on how the ledger should work in a safe way, in a signed way that only one can sign somebody's own wallet's transaction, but anonymously. And in a way, the structure is so redesigned that we can actually develop way more types of transactions. Even that whole smart contract stuff can be put into this structure, or built on top of the structure, etc., etc. It's so much new from the ground up, completely new idea, that it will take a while to be grasped, I guess, for the world, that it can be different as the current ones. the design is in such a way that you have only a 100% consensus network and no deviating ledgers. As soon as there is a hackers network even bigger than the current node network, then the software itself causes that the hacking network is actually kind of splitting off the network and completely gets disconnected from the current node network, and because it is deviating from the current protocol in that sense. They try to influence it by putting in false transactions, etc. All kinds of hackers bullshit. And as soon as any node is actually deviating from the protocol of how the consensus works, then even if it's a complete network, then that whole network is getting separated and they are completely no longer connected with each other. And the node network is just running as it should. Nothing as if never ever has happened. But the hackers network is just a network on its own, what is only influencing their own ledger and nothing else. But the official core node just stays working for what it should do. Kind of unhackable thing and a hacker's nightmare, but it's the protection we want, an actual one. You know. And yeah, so far we start with FCC, and there are two other points were going to be created on a different principle, economic principle in that sense. But FCC will be the main coin on where the base principle actually runs as purely as a ledger in that sense, and nothing else until version 2, probably, with the whole smart contract idea that you can actually pay people automatically, etc. And sort of administrative tool what is expendable of yeah, not expendable, but you can grow in a bigger thing what you use for your own life. Who knows? Other companies are starting with ways to actually do the transactions in stores, etc. in practical sense. That it is actually a currency function. And then without the limitations of, it's just kind of opinion model of there is always statically increase of money. And that won't change, and the transactions are always a minimum of 0.01% of the transaction. And that will never change as well. So in a sense, will grow in infinite time, yeah. But the more in time people use it, the more eventually the question will be for there, the ask will be for there, and probably its value will grow the same. But in a way, there's always a million randomly through miners distributed. And everybody can mine and everybody can run a node. And the nodes will earn the fee of the transactions. It's no longer the miners who earn the fee. The miners can only earn through the coin creation. So yeah, it doesn't matter which one you run. On both sides, you can earn your money or the cryptocurrency. And that's mainly the model for FCC then. Other coins have other ideas and other ways to release it and other goals to use it for, etc., etc. It's just more how you will put it into the world. It doesn't matter. The base principle is still that the ledger is run by the nodes, and the ledger can't be influenced by anything else other than the consensus of the nodes and the validity of all the transactions. The double spending is end of story in that sense. There is not even a risk. The first transaction gets spent, and if it's no longer spendable, it won't get into the ledger. Simple. Because the whole network deals with one transaction at a time. Well, you can deal with several thousands per second.
Fingers crossed it's a success for you then.
Yeah. Series, thanks again, man. It's been lots of information coming out. I thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Yeah, factorialcoin.nl. Read more about it.
Yeah, it's something I need to research more about. I have a friend of mine who's really involved into that cryptocurrency and blockchain, AI, and all that. I'm just intrigued by it. I want to learn more. I know that it's a little off topic, of course, because we're talking about research, but maybe another day we can get into that discussion. I don't want to mix dialogue here. I just want to keep it on topic, basically. But if you want to just, shed some light on it real quick, get some people up to speed, even myself, yeah, go for it, man.
Yes, Bitcoin is what Bitcoin is. Yeah, it's, I don't know. It's the same scheme what money itself is, in that sense, and it's more how you actually use something for an actual trust base within your own community in that sense. Because then you have a transaction between something what is an actual liquid thing as a function that you share your labor, because that's the only thing what is shared there. You do your labor, you get that in money, and then you spend that on somebody else's labor. And it doesn't matter what you use. It's more like what we know about that particular banker's quote of "give me the right to mint, and I don't give a damn about a country's laws." So we just don't give them the right to mint. We take our right to mint, and it is a way more personal and trust issue with creating your own coin. Are you actually not the same, running the same scheme as bankers do? I mean, with banks, it's even worse. And when you loan money for a house, the signature of your loan is actually signing a promissory note. That promissory note creates the money. You get it in so-called cash form from the bank, and you spend that cash on the one who's selling the house, and you have your house, but then you'll need to repay the loan. is in the contract, you know, with interest, and then you repay the loan and with interest even. But the money you have created through your signature on the promissory note, you never get back. So who is stealing what from who, actually?
So basically, just another paradigm, basically.
That interest part was never created to begin with. But you have to pay it back on money what you actually created yourself. So why not actually sign that promissory note and then bring that to the guy who is actually selling the house so you can buy the house directly without paying back a loan to a bank what is going through some kind of currency? I mean, if that promissory note is so powerful to create that money, then not why directly pay with promissory notes, as we originally did, because we're worth it. That's why we signed these things. But in the meanwhile, we're actually getting ripped double. We create it, but we never get it back. But we work for it. And then you may wonder who is actually the beneficiary in this whole story. Who is earning whose labor? Just for creating a way to get somebody else paid. Because that is the actual payment acceptance. That's something we have to agree upon. That is the actual payment.
Right.
Labor. You know?
Right. Exactly. I understand. Yeah.
In that sense, I have a lot of labor unpaid. Just for taking the risk of creating something for somebody, spending my time on it, etc.
Yep. Yep. Because your time and your energy is worth something. Yeah. No. Series. Thanks again for that. Like again, I'm gonna look more into that as well. You guys. Any other questions for Mr. Series or to the panel on chat? Anybody? Or vice versa? Anybody got any questions? Cats, do you have anything else?
Might be a delay, like NASA's.
We're on a 9-second delay, right? Well, it changed. Now there's no delay. It's like instantaneous. If you didn't notice the last time they had that. But yeah, Cats, do you have any other questions or anything?
No, I'm fine. Very interesting series. I'm glad you're back, for one. Hopefully we hear more. I know you never left, but you were absent for a while.
Yeah, it's just busy. Sometimes you need to do the work, you know. That just takes the time. I can't help that.
Very true. I'm glad. But I'm still glad you're back. Even though you haven't left, you say.
Yeah, a lot of things changed though.
Yes, it has, didn't it? In a short while, it has.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I'm strong. We're all strong here. We'll continue. You know. But yeah. I don't have any questions. I don't know about you all.
I have no questions, but if you want to wrap this up pretty soon, and then we could have another hangout later on tonight. I think you said you wanted to do the Any Topics hangout.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody listening in, we'll have it. I think you said what, 8 p.m.
It's
Eastern Standard Time.
I'm trying to figure it out. Okay. 8 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock my time, 5 o'clock, yeah. So it'll be
Okay.
6 o'clock my time, 5 o'clock Pacific. Eastern is 7. Wait, 8.
That's it. Do you guys want to wrap this up, or FPV? Any last words? One conscience? Anybody?
I'm good, guys.
Yeah, I'm okay. It's a lot to take in and wrap my head around.
Yep. Likewise, I'm still like, wait a minute here. I need to rewatch this video, listen to what you were talking about, series, take some more notes down, and have you on another night so we can talk about more about what's going on here.
Yeah, there'll be more updates as we progress more.
Mhm.
I'm still going to battle on the Alaska lines and such. We're working with one.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about the dimensions and whatnot. I'm gonna look into the chakras and think about, consider those frequencies from the chakras and the dimensions as well. It's opened a whole new perspective for myself. So, this is fun. This is good stuff, you guys. Like I said, I enjoy thinking and talking about these sort of things. So, good stuff. Well, anyways, series, I thank you. FPV, One Conscience, thank you guys. Cats, thanks again for giving us a platform to have this sort of discussion. And you guys on the research team, you guys are amazing. And we'll see where we go with all this. It's a work in progress, like I've said before. So
Yeah, you're welcome, Mike, and you, Cats. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you for letting me come on.
Oh, anytime, one. Oh, thanks, series.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Oh, shout
We'll
out
see
to
you
Ron in
soon.
chat. Ron's in chat. Give me a shout out.
FPV, like always, thanks. And Trotter, like always, for sure. Because, we're all a team here. No matter what, we're all a team. But thanks. And there, of course, everyone in chat, with all our heart, thanks for supporting me again. Hopefully by next month, my original channel will come back up. But thanks, all of you guys. With all my heart, thanks. But we'll talk to you guys later. We'll do have a hangout again later on today. 5 o'clock Pacific, Michelle. 6 o'clock Mountain Time, I think. And 8 o'clock at Eastern. So, Sean, remember you have to come. So,
yeah,
we'll see you all later on today. Thanks, Jamie, for your help, too. I mean, when you're always almost done to your hangout, you always ask if I'm coming on. With all my heart, thanks. If it wasn't for you either, they won't be here neither. So thanks, Jamie. But that's it. Anybody has anything else to say can go ahead and say.
no, that's it. I don't know if anybody got to see my boy's work. Him and Shill Scanner did a really good song. Dank Force Delta Meme, Hold My Hand. I don't know if they're in the chat, but if you want to put that up, it's a really good tune, and the visuals are amazing too. So shout out to Shill Scanner and Issa. Thank you for that recent video, you guys. Good stuff. That's about it.
I have one more to thank someone that I wasn't expecting, but I thank him with all my heart. And Dell, if you're hearing this, seeing this, thanks for shouting out our channel and giving us a thumbs up through your hangout yesterday. I appreciate it. May the Lord bless you wherever He's taking you. So, thanks.
Yeah, good on you, mate.
That's it.
And you guys in chat as well. Thanks for hanging around and putting up with us.
Yeah, everybody. Peace out. Much love, everybody. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. See you guys later.
Okay. Yep.